What is up, YouTube? We're back with another fantasy video. This one today will be overvalued running backs. I know I did the last three. I already did over and under for wide receivers, and I did under. So, wrapping up the two most important positions, I'd say. And I'm probably not gonna do one for any other position. I might just go into my team record predictions, and then also awards like MVP, Offensive Player, Coach of the Year, all that. And then I'll probably do against the spread picks for this week. So I think I am too busy this week to do any more fantasy videos, but I will be coming out with waiver wire pickup videos after a few weeks. So lots of videos this week before Sunday. So be on the lookout, and we can get into this one. So same deal for this video. It is based on the ESPN PPR cheat sheet that they'll recommend you to draft this guy at this rank or whatever if you do auto draft. It's those rankings. I don't think they update them over the weekend, and this was a long weekend, so this should be updated on Tuesday morning. So things may look a little different, probably not too drastic, but this should be Friday's ranking. And they have Saquon at 3. I think that even if he's healthy the whole year, his main concern for why you wouldn't take him at 3 is his health. And taking a guy at 3, if you take any guy top 1, 2, or 3 and they get injured for the year or for a while, it's really hard to win your league, because you already, if I'm assuming you guys all do snake drafts, but if your top 3 pick gets hurt, your second best guy is going to most likely be worse than the majority of your league's top 2 players, since the later you draft, the better your second pick's going to be. So really, you want to really be careful in taking a guy that has always played the majority of games. Saquon, he was out most of last year, and then the year before he was out for like 4 games, I believe, in the middle of the season. That's not as big of a deal, more the ACL tear. I'm sure he'll play the majority of games this year, but it's just something you got to watch out for. But I believe that if he played all 16 games, I think that I would still rather have Cook, CMC, and Kamara. Not sure why he's above Kamara. I believe is number 4. Maybe they think that he'll slow down without Drew Brees, but I don't know. I think he'll be just as good. Another reason to not take him at 3 is that he's basically their whole offense now. I guess they did pull in Kenny Galladay, and they still have pretty solid receivers. It's just that Daniel Jones, this is his last year to prove himself, or else I'm sure they'll bring in somebody new next year. I'm not a big Daniel Jones guy. I think he has pretty bad turnover problems, and he just has questionable decision making at times. He does have a really bad O-line too, so he kind of was in a bad situation to begin with, but I feel like the majority of quarterbacks, when they're young, they start off in a bad situation. But other than, guys like Aaron Rodgers or Mac Jones that just fall into an already good team. But it's not like you're ever in a good situation when you get drafted that early. And Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, they're all going to have to do the same thing as Jones. So they took a chance on him, drafted him fourth. It's didn't really work out just yet. So that puts a lot of the pressure on Saquon and their defense to be really good. And that's the only reason that they won. It was 6 or 7 games last year, I believe. But yeah, I believe that defenses are going to be more worried about game planning for Saquon than for Daniel Jones. So I think that'll be the main goal whenever you play the Giants, is to the main goal on defense is to stop Saquon. The whole team, they're going to be way more worried about the Giants' defense over their offense because their defense is really solid. But I just think Saquon, I would take. There's even a few other guys that take over him. I'd probably take Aaron Jones. I believe in the overall rankings, he is ahead of Kelsey and Devontae Adams. I'd probably take one of those before I'd take him, just because they're going to be probably number one in wide receiver and tight end, and you've never had to worry about injuries with them, really. I'm trying to think if there's any other running backs I'd take. Probably not. The ones close to him right after, I'm not too high on either. They're on this list. But yeah, that's Saquon. Be careful with him. So Derrick Henry, I'd probably take Derrick Henry over Saquon, honestly. Just because I don't think you have to worry about him getting injured. But I just think 5 is a little high just because he's never going to have any receptions. That's the main thing. So last year, his season that was 2,000 yards rushing, he had a lot of touchdowns too. I don't know if he led the league, but he was definitely top 3, top 4 touchdowns. But he's going to basically have to repeat all those numbers that he had last year to be in the top 3, top 4. And I think there's a very low chance of that happening. I'm not trying to hate on Derrick Henry. I just think from analytical point, you're not gonna have the numbers. Even a freak like Derrick Henry, he shouldn't be expected to put up those numbers he put up last year. So you can argue that Julio Jones will open up things for Derrick Henry, since defenses can't just solely worry about Julio or Derrick Henry. But one good thing about Julio for Derrick Henry is that he's never been a big goal line target for a while. He's had a few years where he just puts up 1,700 yards and then 4 touchdowns. So I think that early field, midfield, that it'll be bad for Derrick Henry, but I don't think you need to worry about it on the goal line. But the departure of Arthur Smith could be a negative because he just always wanted to pound Henry. I think any offensive coordinator would have that same mindset. But before Derrick Henry was the back that we all know him as now, that was still kind of his game plan, was always just get Derrick Henry going, open things up. So I'm sure that their offense will be pretty similar. Probably throw it a little bit more now that Julio's there. But I just think that it's hard to be a running back that doesn't get any receptions, especially in a PPR league, and be ranked this high. He's heavily favored to win the rushing yard crown again this year, but I just think that he's a guy that we all know is one of the best, like just pure football wise, but for PPR you really got to be careful and be realistic. He's probably not going to get 2,000 yards again. I just think 5 is a little high. So I was very hesitant to put Zeke on here, but I just think that he's top 6, and he was very underwhelming last year. There's a lot of good reasons to not be concerned about why he was so bad last year. Dak obviously was gone. They had multiple injuries on the offensive line, and all those people should be back. Little concerned about Dak just because the ankle injury was pretty brutal, and it hasn't even been a whole year. I think it's only been 10, 11 months. So I am a little worried that he might struggle a bit, and that will put a lot of pressure on Zeke to really carry the offense, kind of like last year. And I think that they want to pass it a lot since they drafted CD. He didn't live up to his expectations last year. I think he has a chip on his shoulder to really take a big step. And if Dak looks good, I believe that CD will really improve from last year, which will affect Zeke negatively just a little bit. And then, they still got Cooper and Gallup. So they have the arsenal at wide receiver to just really put up a lot of passing yards, which Dak was doing. I think he was averaging like 400 yards a game or something last year at the start. So I think that they should be passing it a lot. All those receivers are young, in their prime. CD, second year, hopefully breaks out. I think people are expecting him to. So one thing that people aren't really mentioning is that Tony Pollard he looked pretty good last year, and I think that he's only going to get better. And that'll take a little bit of the workload away from Zeke. It's not the biggest deal as much as Dak and them passing a lot. But I think that's something to keep in mind. Because even if they just use him a little bit more, that'll drop him down from being a top 5 running back to being, it'll knock him down a couple ranks. So I just think Zeke, like I mentioned, guys like Aaron Jones, Eckler, guys that have always been consistent, not really trending way upward or way downward at all. Guys that you don't really have to worry about. I just think Zeke has too many concerns to take him in your top 6. So that's why I would be careful with him. So next up, drop a little more down the guys so you don't really have to worry too much about the downside, but still a little overvalued in my opinion. Myles Gaskin is going to be that one. Sneaky waiver wire pickup from last year. Last year, the Dolphins, they had Matt Breida and Jordan Howard not work out for them. He was kind of their only hope, and he did pretty good, put up good numbers. I just don't know if he'll keep it up. I think it sounds mean saying that he had like a fluke year, but I just don't think he's going to be that guy again. I think that him and Malcolm Brown, they're kind of, it's kind of a coin flip right now for who's going to be the guy. I can see Myles Gaskin being kind of like a Nyheim Hines, J.D. McKissick type guy. Not that he was bad on the ground as a ground running back at all, but I just think that they want it to be Malcolm Brown. He's not a small shifty guy, kind of like Myles Gaskin. And then they also have Salvin Ahmad too, who showed a lot of promise last year. I just think the Dolphins are pretty good at just making whatever they have work, and I think that's going to. I think the Dolphins are good at making whatever back they have work, and I think that is going to be very beneficial for Malcolm Brown. I think that he's going to have a big year, and I think that Myles Gaskin will fade a little bit away, but I think he'll still be relevant. He'll definitely be close to top 30, probably more top 35 realistically. But yeah, the Dolphins, they've had a lot of guys like Jay Ajayi, Kenyon Drake, just guys work for them for however long they have them, and then they just fade away. Hasn't happened to Kenyon Drake yet, but yeah, I just think Myles Gaskin, he's definitely not going to be the goal line guy, just solely based on how much smaller he is than Malcolm Brown. But I think he'll be, that shifty receiver back like Nyheim Hines or Miles Sanders. He'll be that. They'll use him in that role. So yeah, look for grabbing him a little bit more down than this, in my opinion. Zach Moss. I don't really have anything against his talent. I just think that the Bills is not really where you want to be a running back relatively high ranked at all. Or I don't think you should take a Bills running back high at all. I'd probably just stay away from him in general. And what's also concerning is they really have no idea who's going to be the guy as of now. I think the favorite is probably Singletary still. Could be Breda, but I doubt it. I think it'll be Singletary Moss again. And they always have really good yards per carry, but they just never use them. And I think the only reason... I still think they're good and solid running backs, Singletary and Moss, but I just think that I think that defenses are never expecting them to run it. So I think that kind of inflates their yards per carry just a tinch. Because they're a big passing team. No run game identity whatsoever, really. And that exposed them in the playoffs last year. And you would think they'd want to get away from that and change, their offense to be a little more of a running offense. But I just think that they don't really know who that guy is yet, and that's what makes it riskier. And also, Singletary is more of that shifty, athletic, smaller type back. And I think that I would probably take Singletary over Zach Moss, even though I believe that they have Moss ranked above Singletary. Not really sure why. They probably have some insiders that know something I don't, that they're leaning that way. I haven't heard anything. I'm pretty sure the job as the RB1 is up in the air as of now. But yeah, Zach Moss definitely more of a goal line type guy, not shifty receiver back like Singletary. And yeah, and Josh Allen throws a lot of touchdowns and he runs for a lot because he's pretty big and he's just athletic. So yeah, I don't see too much upside on taking Moss. So I'd stay away from him that high. Got a couple dishonorable mentions. Jonathan Taylor, I think 7, is jumping the gun a little too quick. I think everybody is forgetting about Marlon Mack. Didn't play at all last year, really. I believe he got injured in either week 1 or week 2. And yeah, he's kind of on the trading block right now just because they already have Taylor, and then Nyheim Hines is a very solid backup. Yeah, I think it's a little risky. I think 7 is pretty accurate if it weren't for Mac. But yeah, Mac is solid, and I think that he'll get a pretty decent chunk of carries. I think that Taylor definitely will get the majority, but I just think that cuts his rushing attempts down significantly compared to last year. And then also, you got to remember the injuries they have. You could argue that Wentz being out would get them more involved and that they'll just run the crap out of the ball. But I think that it's kind of bad because that's what the defenses are going to prioritize defending. And then also Quinn Nelson being out for a good part of the season is going to take a hit. Best interior lineman being injured can never be a good thing for running backs. Has to compete with Mac again. Injuries, not having a good quarterback at all for a majority of the season, as well as Quinn Nelson, just makes it a little concerning for me. And then Singletary, I talked about it with Zach Moss. There's running back competition. Don't really know who the guy is going to be. It's kind of a risk, either if you're going to have to pick Singletary or Moss in that range, and then there's a 50-50 chance that one of them is going to be around there, and then one of them is going to be, waived or not that good. And then we don't know about if Matt Breida is going to be used a lot, if he's healthy. And yeah, they're just they might all just not be good either, just because they pass it so much. So I would stay away from Buffalo. Yeah, 38, pretty low, but there's just choose a guy from a running offense. Nyheim Hines is a guy that's probably ranked below this. He's probably in the 40s. He'll get you 4 or 5 receptions a game. Just guys that they actually use, because they don't know how to use running backs. I'm not sure why. They're so well coached in every other aspect, but yeah. And I hope they figure out their run game, but I would personally stay away. That'll be it for this video. As I mentioned, be on the lookout for season predictions, against the spread picks, award prediction video. yeah, I'll get those 3 done this week. So yeah, make sure to watch those, and I'll see you on the next one.